Ladies and gentlemen, Assalamu alaikum and a very good evening to each and every one of you gathered here today. I am Aisha Ajilan, a final year law student at Sri Lanka Law College, and it is my utmost honor to serve as your mistress of ceremonies for this evening's performance. We are gathered here to remember, to reflect, and to reaffirm our collective commitment to justice. This evening marks an important step in acknowledging a day that is well forgotten and smeared in blood. And it is our hope that this space becomes one of enlightenment and solidarity. Without further ado, I now invite Mr. Najah Mohamed, the chairman of the Academy for Social Justice, to deliver the welcome address.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Good afternoon. Ayubowan Vanakkam. Assalamu alaikum. It is my great pleasure as the chairman of this institute, Academy for Social Justice, to welcome all of you to this important event. This event is a screening a documentary of one of the forgotten tragedy took place in 1990, July 12th, in Bettikalo, Kathankudi, a place called Kurukkalmadam. If you know, go back to the history of the Northeast conflict or the war, 1990, there are so many tragedies happen in the Northeast for the Muslim community by the LTT. You can start from the forcible expulsion of 15,000 families within 24 hours from the north, then shootings in the mosque while ordinary people are praying, abduction and ransom of Muslim businessmen and high officers, politicians. One of the very cruel incident or the tragedy is the Kurukkalmadam. If you recall the whole scenario, you can remember the Hajj pilgrims, while we're returning after their completion of the Hajj, they also included in this abduction and killing in a very brutal way. So this documentary speaks about the remembrance and the ordeal, the women, children, elderly, very innocent people gone through this documentary. It is not just to remember, it seeks for justice. We are in the move as a nation for the reconciliation, peace and justice. For the peace and justice, for the reconciliation, it is very important to find the truth. That is the first step for any peace or the justice or the reconciliation we need. So our effort, the Academy, is embarked to find the truth, exactly what happened. It is not to blaming to everyone. It is find out the truth of the victims and what has happened, what is the justice they are seeking, to highlight this forgotten, this tragedy. We try to highlight and bring out to the policymakers, the government, international community, and the lobbyists. So within a very short notice, we have given this extended invitation very selectively, and most of them are arrived, still arriving, So we are starting the event straight away now. So distinguished invitees who has concern on human rights, they have shown much important to this event to know the background or what it is Kurukkalmadam. When we sent out the invitation, what the response we have got, it is amazing. All of them very much curious about to know this incident, the background, the history. Even some people said, we never heard about this. What is Kurukkalmadam massacre? So we feel that it is very important to bring it out. It is actually one of the incidents. If you take the 1990, whole north of East as a full of stories, it is individual stories, families, as well as the community. You can see the forcible expulsion of 15,000 families. Still, they are not recognized as international refugees. We have been fighting for so many years. And the Muslim communities, although they are not part of the conflict, but they are part of the victims. So when you seek a justice, Muslim aspects and aspiration need to be included if you to find a lasting solution in the North and East. Denying Muslim factor, it never brings a solution to the Northeast. That is, stakeholders, the government, and our Tamil brother community, and the international community all should understand the Muslim dimension of the ethnic conflict of Sri Lanka. While recognizing there is a factor of Muslim in the whole conflict, that is the first step for the lasting solution, we feel. So therefore, still, we have to go a long way in this campaign to make it as a justifiable stake for second minority in the country. So it is the agony, the LTT, while they are demanding for their minority rights as a minority, the same time they have deprived another minority who share the same culture and the language. So if it is genuinely seeking for the lasting solution, for the political solution, Muslim dimension must be included. It should be genuinely taken into the consideration because of the events, the violence, and the impact gone through the Muslim community in the Northeast due to the war. So this is in that context, we feel this is a very important step to make understand another dimension of the conflict. So Kurukkalmadam, this event is one of the most cruel, most the tragedy which is many people doesn't know. So we are bringing it out to highlight this issue, and based on that, we have to continue this exercise to make understand first ourselves and others, then only we can seek justifiable solution to the whole in the transitional justice practices. So I welcome all the invitees, and we have got a very good panelist, Mr. Nawaz Mohammed. He is the chairman of research institute called RISE, Sri Lanka. He is from Kathankudi. He's a community activist, because during the discussion he can brief the context and how the people of Kathankudi and the leaders and the community feel about this incident, what is their reflection on this, and in the process of transitional justice, how these incidents or these tragedies can be brought into the broader context. So those are the areas he can discuss with us. And also, very important activist on the human rights, Ruki Fernando. He's a symbol of voice for injustices is the right activist. So he also joining us in the discussion to bring more about the context of this tragedy. And also I have to mention why this is now. Actually, because there is another same issue is going on in the north, the ceremony. This documentary is nothing to do with ceremony. We have to, our solidarity with ceremony is very strong. We are voicing for that. Meantime, it is not anything to undermine or anything to give low profile to the ceremony grave that evacuation is taking place. So same way, it has an equal weight for this Kurukkalmadam also. That is done by a state, this is done by LTT, that is the difference. But the incident, the victims, both are same, very similar scenarios. So it's abduction and mass killing and dumped in a one grave. It is done by the state, it is done by the LTT. That is only the difference. So this is equally important, both incidents need to be seek justice. So, and also the filmmaker, Baazir Kaleelur Rahman, he is also from Katangudi, but he lives in the UK. He's a human rights activist. He's professionally a filmmaker. He got an MBA in that field. And he's an activist. It's called Activist Beyond Borders. So he's working throughout in the lobbying, the human rights on Sri Lankan issues. He's more qualified person to bring this document out. So he also will be speaking to us through a video voice cut. So from him we can listen his background and the motive of this film. Thank you very much. So we have a good evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Najah Mohamed, for your grounding words. In 1998, the Chemeni mass grave in Jaffna was uncovered following allegations, and hundreds of civilians were killed and buried there during the final stages of the war in the north. Over the years, excavations have revealed human remains, including those of children, confirming long-held fears of extrajudicial killings. Despite court orders and international concern, progress has been slow and full accountability remains elusive. Let us now pause for 2 minutes silence in honor of the victims of the Chemeni mass grave. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. As Elie Wiesel said, there may be times when we are powerless to prevent injustice, but there must never be a time when we fail to protest. This year marks 35 years since one of the most overlooked atrocities in our country's history, the Kurukkalmadam massacre. On July 12, 1990, 72 innocent Muslim civilians, including Hajj returnees, were abducted and killed as they traveled to Katangudi. Their tortured bodies were buried in shallow mass graves. In total, it is believed that over 167 people may be buried there. Despite eyewitness accounts and repeated calls for investigation, no proper inquiry has taken place. Kurukkalmadam remains a silent scar, erased from national memory and ignored by process of justice. a stark example of how the suffering of the Eastern Muslims during the war has often gone unacknowledged. To this day, families still wait for answers. Let us now observe a 2-minute silence in remembrance of the victims of the Kurukkalmadam massacre. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. You may take your seats. It is now my pleasure to introduce Mr. Baazir Kaleelur Rahman, a documentary filmmaker, who will now share with us a few words about the making and message of the documentary we are about to witness. Sir, I kindly invite you.
I'm originally from Katangudi, but I had a business in Kalmune, which is 32 kilometers away from Katangudi. I travel between Katangudi and Kalmune every day. One day, I was on a minibus traveling from Kalmune to Katangudi as usual. There were about 25 to 30 passengers in the bus, Muslims, Tamils, and also a few members of the government forces. Suddenly, an armed man stepped into the middle of the road and fired an RPG. The bus exploded. The driver and few others died instantly. Then more armed men appeared. They fired bullets on the bus. My friend, who was sitting next to me, fell dead. I was covered in blood, wounded deeply, but still alive. I crawled to a nearby house, asking water. They helped when I gave some money. Later, the army found me and took me to the hospital. This is a real incident, happened in 90s, but it didn't happen to me. I was too young to remember that day, and the story was told to me by a survivor. He shared his story with me, and it was the first story I wanted to include in this film. At first, he agreed, but later he changed his mind. The fear was still too strong, the wounds too deep. Hi everyone, thank you for being here today. My name is Baazir, and I'm the director of the documentary film Killing the Travelers. I'm really grateful to everyone who helped to organize this screening today, and I'm sorry I cannot be with you in person. But I'm truly honored that this film is being shown to a such distinguished audience. This short documentary highlights the story behind the Kurukkalmadam massacre of 1990, and it also reflects on the wider patterns of abductions and targeted killing that took place during one of the bloodiest periods of the war. The film is only 25 minutes long, but it carries the weight of silence, decades-long silence. In the film, you will hear about two young men who were abducted in different locations. They were brothers. Both were breadwinners for their family. Behind the camera, the family shared stories that were deeply painful. They spoke about how the trauma changed their lives and everything they lost. The survivor featured in this film shares only a small part of his experience. He not only escaped death, but also lost his property and business taken by the people whom he shared his meals. I also met a mother of two. She became a widow at 19. Her husband had gone to work in a nearby town. He never came back. He had been abducted by an armed group. She raised her children alone and never remarried. She shared her pain with me, but didn't want the world to hear it, again because of fear. There are many other stories I couldn't include. These stories are heavy. As a filmmaker and as someone personally connected to this history, it was simply too much to carry. Their grief is not just history. It is still alive, still unacknowledged, and still unresolved. Most survivors remain silent. They are haunted by trauma and also by the fear of being targeted again, fear of being ignored, fear of speaking out. There's a need to bring these forgotten atrocities to light, particularly the long overlooked suffering of Muslim community in Katanguri and surrounding regions in eastern Sri Lanka. From 1985 to 2009, the community endured profound trauma, targeted violence, forced displacement, mass abductions, and massacres, much of which remains absent from public discourse. Kurukkalmadam massacre took place just in one day, where 72 people were abducted and killed in a certain place. Over 6 million rupees worth of goods were looted that day. Just 2 days later, more were abducted in Odhachimadam. Over the years, more than 350 Muslims from Katangudi and nearby villages were killed, including those murdered in the 1990 mosque massacre. These were systematic abductions, well-planned massacres. More than 250 people were disappeared from the area, and to this day, the remains of at least 168 of them have not been found. Where are they buried? Who will answer for them? These atrocities cannot be dismissed as the work of some random militant groups. Some of the perpetrators are still alive. Some have even held position of power in previous governments. The pain didn't end with the war. As you all know, Sri Lankan Muslims continue to face marginalization, discrimination, and targeted hate. From the forced cremation of COVID-19 victims to the vandalism of mosques and businesses, the fear and injustice persist. And then came to the Easter Sunday bombings, which brought Katangudi to a global attention for all the wrong reasons. A handful of extremists from the area became associated with the attacks. Instead of focusing on justice, the entire Muslim community was scapegoated, turned into a political weapon. It is precisely because of these layers of injustice, during the war and long after it. I decided to make this film to confront erasure, to document the silence, and to help the young generation to recognize the danger of political manipulation and the communal division. This film doesn't aim to deepen divides. It aims to reclaim truth, honor victims, support survivors, and challenge narratives that unjustly portray entire communities as threats. Justice must be given to the Muslim community for the atrocities committed by the state and other armed groups and the LTTE. There's no doubt that government's war crimes against Tamil civilians must be investigated. But why is there so little space to discuss what the LTTE and other armed groups did to Muslims, especially in the East? If Tamil victims can seek justice, and they absolutely must, then Muslim victims should have the same right. Justice is not a zero-sum game. Some have asked me why I didn't make this film as a feature documentary with multiple stories and expert interviews. The answer is simple. I believe just one story can represent hundreds. I focused on one narrative of loss and one of survival, not because others are less important, but because telling this subject matters more than volume. I didn't add more details to the film because I want the viewers, you, to research further and find the truth yourselves. Unlike many other productions, this film was made with no professional crew and no production company backing. Just one camera, and even some scenes were filmed on a mobile phone. The funding came from my own pocket. There were no hidden agendas and only one mission there: to start a conversation that has been absent for far too long. And the barriers were many. Few international broadcasters initially expressed their interest, but later withdrew, calling the subject is too niche. I approached local institutions to screen this film in the country. Their response was no different. Some were even afraid to screen the film, fearing political or community backlash. But I still wonder, who are they afraid of? Whose silence are we protecting here? Despite these challenges, I'm incredibly grateful to everyone who believed in this project, especially to the families who shared their testimonies with such courage, even as many others understandably couldn't. This film is not just about the past. It is about the need to reclaim memory, even when it hurts, because silence only deepens the wound. I urge all of you to lend your voices, platforms, and influence to this cause and to many other injustices still awaiting recognition. Thank you for watching, thank you for listening, and above all, thank you for remembering.
Mr. Rahman, for that moving and powerful address. And now we come to the heart of today's gathering. Through powerful visuals and survivor accounts and brave storytelling, this documentary brings to light one of the most painful and neglected tragedies of our nation's past. We now invite you to watch Killing the Travelers, a documentary that unveils chilling truths.
Amir, kundula vandu peitaru. அந்த பக்கத்துல இருந்து அசைப்பட எழுஞ்சி டக்குனாக்குல
தெருவினை பார்த்தே தேடிய விழிகள் தினம் தினம் நினைக்கிறதே.
We might have heard about crimes, we might have read them in history books, but it was a whole new experience to witness, to listen to a first-hand experience of a heinous crime. Thank you, Mr. Baazir Rahman, for that insightful and wonderful documentary. Next in line, we have the panel discussion, followed by an opportunity for you, the audience, to engage through a question and answer session. Joining us for the discussion are Mr. Ruki Fernando, human rights activist, Mr. Nawaz Mohammed, chairman of Research Institute for Social Empowerment, Sri Lanka, and moderated by Mr. Najah Mohamed. Gentlemen, I invite you to the stage.
Yes, we had seen a very wonderful documentary on the incident. Now we are on the followed by the discussion. We have got two resource persons here, as I brief in my welcome speech. So audience also has an opportunity to ask questions, and also you can make comments as well for the way forward when you have anything important direction to guide us to take it further. Also I had to mention it is already in the courts, the case is there, it is being it was 2014 there was a case, then now it is started with new momentum, so it will be taken up, so that in that aspect also you can give your opinion and suggestions. The legal experts are here. First I call Brother Nawaz. He's an activist as well as is originally from Katangudi, so he knows more into the subject from his own village. He might have his own experience on this as well. So first we listen to him, then we can go to Ruki Fernando. Thank you.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. Good afternoon, everyone. Vanakkam. Thanks Najah and the Academy for Social Justice team for this wonderful opportunity. And I'm really pleased to be with Ruki sharing this panel. Ruki is well known for his commitment and long-standing fight for human rights, minority rights and transitional justice in this country. So it's a real pleasure to share this panel with you, Ruki. I'll just start with a story. A woman who was a women-headed household, quite young, was very down and almost felt, devastated, destroyed one evening when she heard the news that her adopted daughter, she has 4 boys, since she didn't have girls, she adopted a girl from Badulla, was abducted in this same incident where several people or hundreds of people were abducted in Kurukkalmadam. So she was completely devastated, and she couldn't really stand that, because for safety and other reasons she has sent out all her 4 boys to other parts of the country due to the security situation in Katangudi and around that area for various reasons. So it was herself and that adopted daughter who were living in that house for many years, and then they were very close to each other. They were not just mother and daughters, they were also friends. They had so many things in common. So this daughter who actually went to see her original family in Badulla and was her mother, with her original mother, and it was her and her mother who were abducted in this case, right? And then later, for this woman, Khadija, she couldn't live in that house. She had to move to a relative's house for several years because she couldn't live there. And then she also went through severe trauma for years, which made a lot of other impacts in the family. She had to give her eldest son in marriage quite early in age, just to have that kind of a family relationship and all of that. And then she actually, all her life, she passed away a couple of years back. Inna lillahi wa inna ilaihi rajiun. All her life, she, even though she was very smart, she was one of a very strong, a very courageous woman in that area. She kind of knew, her head always told her that this is done, gone away, but her heart didn't believe that. She always would also believe all kinds of stories people would tell, they are there, they are here, all those kind of stories. And then she would also be, she was actually, partly she believed, partly she didn't believe, but she was in search. She was looking for it. She was also a very religiously pious woman, and she was also very worried about not being able to perform the religious rituals for her lovely daughter. These are the kinds of stories behind these incidents. And so Khadija is none other than my own mother. And even Najah didn't know about it. So it starts with a lot of personal stories and connections in Katangudi and around those areas. Why do I have to? It's not that I shared the story because it's my personal story, and I want to shed light on that. I shared this because the kind of notion, the impression that Sri Lanka has about Muslims in Sri Lanka is that they are well off, they are fine, they had no problem, they had no issues. But actually, there are a lot of stories that have backgrounds to Muslims that in terms of effects. So a few more points in terms of giving a bit of context in Katangudi around that period. I was a teenager. The city, the closest city, Katangudi now is a popular city, and I'm sure most of you would have traveled recently and all of that, but it was nowhere near what you see now in 1990. It was a very small village kind of area, so the nearest city was Batiklo town, and the best schools were also in Batiklo, right? So most of the Katangudi, significant number of Katangudi students would go to Batiklo schools for better education. But during that period, many parents have to pull out kids from those schools for fear of getting abducted and security reasons, right? And then Katangudi is also a very small area. It's 3.5 square kilometers, and now there's about 60,000 people. In 90, there would have been about 40,000 people, right? And no production, no agriculture, nothing happens there. So Katangudi is completely dependent for every single consuming items to come into Katangudi through the two roads, because the other two sides are one covered by river, the other by sea. Right? So LTTE at one point, because Katangudi people refused to pay ransom, they brought an economic embargo on Katangudi for several days. That actually brought the place into a halting situation where they didn't get any items into the area, right? And then Katangudi people were traditionally farmers, especially paddy farmers. they had hundreds and hundreds of acres of paddy field, paddy land, and those who know the geography, in Batiklo, the farming areas are all kind of, in certain areas which are kind of in closer to Tamil majority areas, which were areas known as controlled by LTT during the war. So the Katangudi people lost almost all their livelihood. No access, they couldn't go, they couldn't do farming, and they had to find innovative ways to, find new things for their livelihood. So a lot of them started businesses and trading, and that's how you think Katangudi is a generational trading hub? Not at all. My grandfathers, similar to many grandfathers, were farmers. So this kind of was the context in which these incidents happened. And then on top of that, as Baazir mentioned in his speech, Katangudi also faced that really terrible mosque massacre, where hundreds of people were massacred while they were praying in a mosque. So you could kind of imagine and sense the sense of fear, the sense of psychological trauma, the sense of, like, there were the nights people don't sleep. Half of the people actually go and they put up like these security points in the borders, like while other half sleeps, right? So I thought just to share some of these, points so that you could actually visualize the context during when this incident happened. So I'll stop my initial sharing with that.
Thank you for inviting me to share some thoughts. To pick up from what Nawaz said about the personal dimension, I want to highlight 3 dimensions or perspectives of this kind of incidents in plural. One is the personal dimension. When something like this happens, it's a very personal thing for the person who is affected, like Ismail or the mother or the sister that we saw. It's very personal. It's the same for anything else that happened. Anyone, any family, relative or loved one of someone who has been killed or disappeared or detained unjustly for prolonged periods or tortured or sexually abused or harassed. It's very, very personal. So when we discuss these things, I think the personal dimension is very important. What if it was my mother, my father, my son, my daughter, my brother, my sister, or my classmate, or my neighbor, physical neighbor? And I'm glad that that dimension is strongly brought out in the film. I think the characters in the film really give us a strong kind of make that presence felt very much, that this is a personal tragedy. And I think as we look for ways forward, we have to always address that personal dimension. The second part, which all of us may not be so comfortable, is the legal dimension. Maybe there might be a few lawyers here. I am not a lawyer, but I am very conscious that we are dealing with incidents that are illegal according to national laws, but also international laws, which are violations of international human rights law, but also international humanitarian law. Now, humanitarian law is something that in a way indirectly condones war. It says you can fight each other, but it says that you can only fight, the fight must be among the combatants. It cannot be with the supporters. No, it cannot be with the journalists who are covering the war. It cannot be with the doctors or anyone else who is treating the injured. No, strictly combatants. So that's international humanitarian law, and I think when we talk about these things, we need to be a little bit conscious of the legal dimension as well. The third part, which also some might be uncomfortable to deal with, is the political dimension. So these are not only a legal crime or some illegal act. These are deeply political. So when we say political, I think the film also mentions that the Sri Lankan government, which is entrenchedly Sinhalese Buddhist, historically, was fighting a war with the LTTE, which is essentially Tamil. But then Muslims and many others were caught in that warfare. So I think the film mentions that very clearly. So that's also political. So when we think of addressing wartime atrocities, what are the atrocities we want to address? Numerically, in terms of numbers, I think it's quite clear that ethnically Tamils were the largest numbers that were killed or disappeared or displaced, numerically. But if you look at the legal dimension or the personal dimension, then the numbers doesn't tell the full story. The hurt that is caused cannot be measured by numbers. Right? So here is we are discussing today primarily with a larger focus on Muslims who were abducted, most probably killed, and whose fate and whereabouts we still don't know about. Likewise, I also want to remember many Sinhalese who were killed in the mostly in the borders of the north and east. These were commonly known as border villages, Mai Gammana in Sinhalese, or also referred to as threatened villages, because these were Sinhalese villages that were threatened. While we talk about the overall, the large numbers that were Tamils who were killed or disappeared or displaced. So that's very entrenchedly political. So I think when we address these issues, we need to consider all these dimensions. We cannot afford to forget the deeply personal dimension or the legal dimension or the political dimension. So we need to consider all these three. And in terms of expectations, I think there are also, I would think of 4 expectations, which is also a bit theoretical, but I want to try and make it more practical. The first is we want to find out the truth, or we want to acknowledge the truth. And we want other people around us, our neighbors, friends, relatives, society at large, particularly people from other ethnic communities, to acknowledge what we believe to be the truth or what we know to be the truth. In this case, we would like to see that the LTT is acknowledged as the perpetrator of what happened in Kurukkalmadam. At the same way, we would like to see the Sri Lankan military as being acknowledged as the perpetrator for what happened in Saturakondan, where about 180 Tamils were killed, and many other incidents like that. So we would like some acknowledgement of the truth in some way. Also, we would like some reparations. Reparations might be like a memorial. Now, in the Kathankudi Mosque, I think there was a brief image of that in the film. There is a memorial. The bullet holes are still there in the 2 mosques in Kathankudi. In fact, I think there are a couple of people I have taken to the Kathankudi Mosque here, right? Because I think everyone should know that. That's why it's retained there. The names of the people who were killed in the 2 Kathankudi mosques in 1990 that Nawaz referred to are there. And some other places also, these memorials are there. So that's one part. Financial compensation could be another. Livelihood support could be another. Counseling to recover from the trauma could be another. Medical health care to recover from physical injuries could be another form of reparations. So I think that's the second part in terms of expectations. The third part, I think, is criminal accountability. And criminal accountability involves a judicial process. It could be national, it could be international. And in the history globally, we see both happening. Some criminal accountability processes are national, some are international, some are sometimes hybrid. It means legally holding those responsible accountable. It's a legal process. And of course, the last part, the fourth one is, I think we would like to make sure that these things doesn't happen again. Whether it's in Kurukkalmadam, whether it's in Kathankudi, Batiklor or Colombo or anywhere. Chemmani or anywhere, we would like to make sure, or in Gaza or anywhere, we would like to make sure that these things don't happen again. That's the idea of, it should not happen to anyone, anywhere else. So I think these are the kind of the 4 expectations we could aim for. And I want to highlight some, what I think are practical challenges. So I try to read a little bit about this series of incidents, not one, but series of incidents related to Kurukkalmadam massacre or the mass graves. I think one is very ethnic. I think we need to acknowledge that we are ethnically divided. I can have a small exercise asking Sinhalese here to raise their hands. Those who identify as ethnically Sinhalese, to raise your hands. Anyone who want to do that? I can ask those who identify themselves as ethnically Tamil to raise their hands here. I suspect that the majority here are people who will identify ethnically as Muslims. And I think that's the challenge. If I went to a discussion about Chemmani, I think I would find mostly Tamils. If I went to a discussion about what happened in a border village, in Sinhalese border village, I think I would find mostly Sinhalese. So I think that's the challenge that we have, the ethnic border. It is very nice to say that, our neighbor is Sinhalese and our neighbor is Tamil and Muslim and we play cricket together. We exchange during Christmas and Ramadan and Pongal and all that. That's all nice. We join each other's funerals and weddings and all that. But how much are we one with each other across ethnic religious divides in terms of real substantial matters like this, what we are discussing? So I think the ethnic dimension is a major challenge we face. I think it's a mistake to sweep it out. That's why I want to bring it out into the open and ask how many Sinhalese are here and how many Tamils are here in terms of ethnicity. So without, I think, acknowledging that is very difficult to move forward. But I think I also need to think of, the legal dimension. I think one of the challenges we would face is the technical parts of documentation. I think we need to, I also struggled. I asked, in fact, some of the organizers, because I want to learn more before I share some thoughts here as a panelist. It's quite difficult. But there is documentation. In fact, I printed out a lot of material here. Not everything. But from 1990, there are organizations, Sri Lankan groups like University Teachers for Human Rights, Jaffna, UTHR Jaffna, and I want to acknowledge their work, which has been an inspiration for many people, including me. From 1990-91, they have, to some extent, documented what happened in Kurukkalmadam. There's international media reports here. And there's also even Sri Lankan government acknowledgement that what happened in relation to Kurukkalmadam has been reported to state institutions. Different governments come and go, whether it's UNP or SLFP or Pohottuar or NPP or whatever, they come and go. But state institutions have acknowledged what has happened. And I think that is very important. So there is some documentation, but I think we need to pay more attention to systematically, professionally documenting what happened in terms of July 12th or before that or after that. I think the film is a film, but I think if you want legal criminal accountability, we need to go beyond the film, which is a work of art, I believe, and do more systematic documentation. I think that's another kind of a challenge that I want to highlight. And finally, I think there is a state challenge. LTT may have been responsible and most probably responsible for these incidents that we are talking about, a private kind of group. But the state has a responsibility, irrespective of which government it is. Now, in the film itself, there is reference to the police, which did not want to take action properly, even when it was reported to. There is reference in the film to state authorities who said that your family members are alive, but never updated the family members of what happened afterwards. I have here media reports which are state government, foreign reports acknowledgements saying that these things were reported to the government. 2014 there is reports of judicial processes. Now again 2025 there is another reports of judicial processes. Maybe in 2035 we might see next judicial processes happening. And I think our aim of gathering here and the film is to prevent that and to make sure that this process that is in 2025 will be carried forward in 25 or hopefully 26 the latest. No, not 2035 or 36. So the state also has a responsibility irrespective of the direct responsibility of a private group like the LTT. And I think that will always be a challenge. And I think we have a new, relatively new government, not very new, 10 months old, who have not shown much interest in these things. And I think it's a challenge for the new government to show their commitment that they are really committed to a country which has no racism, equality across ethnic, religious communities. And I think this is a good opportunity for them to show by ensuring that the institutions, officials can work independently on this matter. It has come up again. There is a judicial kind of process going on now since last week in particular. So we hope that let's watch the proceedings closely from August onwards, while also paying attention to the personal and the political dimensions. So I'll stop my sharing there, and thank you for inviting me again.
Thank you, Ruki, for insightful opinions on the subject. We can go for the questions. Before that, Nawaz.
No, I'd like to make a few more interventions. Actually, Ruki was a bit modestly mentioned those as challenges. Since I'm a Muslim and also from Kathankudi, I can actually frame the same as weaknesses of the Muslim community and would like to highlight some of those points. So the 2 points Ruki mentioned, the legal aspect of it and the political aspect of it. If the Muslim community in Sri Lanka wanted legal remedies, legal responses and political responses to the kind of the discriminations or effects that happen to Muslim community, they need more work, they need more efforts from within the Muslim community. Right? Like for example, documentations, right, is just one example, right? Another example, Ruki asked like how many Sinhalese and Tamils here, but I would actually see a very different crowd here if this was about Chemmani, right? I don't see a lot of diplomatic missions here. I don't see a lot of human rights community from the other communities here, right? Either it is a problem that we are a bit distanced from them as a Muslim community, or they don't know enough, or we have not drawn enough of attention from them, without which it's not easy to really get in there in the table in terms of asking for justice or in terms of asking for political remedies or political responses to these things, right? So we need to be very mindful of those. We are very good. I mean, I'm also like to connect this to what really the talk of the town in Kathankudi now about Kurukkalmadam, right? So there's very emotional, it's very current, right? And lot of, majority of it is about, like justice and equality in a way, right? So why Muslims, get like slightly, less treatment kind of points, right? I can be honest about it, right? Even though we all stand for and we all support equally Chemmani and Kurukkalmadam and all of that. So this is the kind of the sentiment and emotions that are coming, but on the other hand, these things also need community efforts that need to really put the Muslim community on the map and need to bring the Muslim community into the table, right? So I would like to highlight that because there's the majority Muslim crowd here. The final point I would like to make is actually the point Ruki made about the non-recurrence, or making sure things like this doesn't happen again. And it is a bigger responsibility of the state, but also with the support and with the efforts of others, to like change laws, bring in new laws, bring in institutions and all of that. I would like to highlight among the Muslim community, including in Katangudi, there's not a lot of faith in whether there'll be genuine efforts in terms of ensuring like non-recurrence, especially with some of the recent incidents with regard to Muslims in terms of PTA arrests and all of those. So there's this you could see the bit of the distrust. You could see the lack of confidence in thinking that there'll be real effort, genuine efforts that would ensure that these things will not be repeated, right? So I think that is also something important that the state and the government need to make a note of, that what the community is thinking, and what the community kind of mood in terms of believing in and trusting and hoping for change, and the role of state and the government in responding to some of these. So I thought I'll just quickly add those points in addition to what I shared earlier.
Okay, thank you, Nawaz. Sheikh Nurami, you want?
First of all, I would like to thank the organizers for organizing something like this. Just 2 points I want to bring to, as a discussion or attention. Number one, as a people of faith, what we discuss about accountability and truth will definitely prevail. That's why God Almighty says that there is a day of reckoning and day of judgment. So either it will happen in our lifetime here in this world or hereafter. This is point number one. So nobody can escape from accountability, from action, especially when it comes to human right violation. This is number one. Number two, when it comes to the topic of justice, it's very unfortunate. We feel the pain only when it happens to us, when it comes and knocks the door to us. So more than we speak about the accountability of the state or someone in power, yes, we have to keep knocking on them. I see it's something which is genetic. I mean, it has to be, if it comes to something justice, that has to be part of our blood, part of our DNA. That anywhere in the world, if innocent child has been killed, we should feel the pain and we should stand for it. And it is very unfortunate we live in a world, we are very selfish, materialistic, and opportunist. And many a time this human right or social justice have been used as a tool for a political gain. Again, Ruki said about the political dimension about it. It's been taken over and over and used as a political tool. So as a Muslim community, I think in Sri Lanka we do have a long history. It is very important that we actually empathize with the pain of others. It's very important. We need to champion that. That's very important. And I think it was a little unfortunate when the war ended. I know, whatever happened when the Tamil community was asking for justice from the, killing and whatever unjust happened to them, we were spectators. We were keeping quiet. And even unfortunate, some of our leaders, political leaders, religious leaders, including everyone, when speaking on behalf of the government and saying that, government has no accountability or any, I'm not really quoting what he but to say that of that. So when it comes to this Kurukkalmadam or any other things, human right violation, it is not, we should not get in an angle of ethnicity. It is unfortunate that is how it changed, but we need to stand for it. Even, when we speak about what happened in 80s, when the South young men, it is also again politically, it's still those is covered. No justice, truth has come. So immunity, accountability, and justice is something that it has to be within the DNA of every single human being, and we need to continuously, talking about it, and that's God Almighty, it is very important, asking for justice, and Prophet said that if you have lost courage to look at, to say, looking at the face of the oppressor, that you're oppressor, that means you lost all goodness. So I just want to conclude with that.
I must, at the outset, compliment Najah for organizing this event together with eminent panelists, well-known human rights defender, fighter, Ruki Fernando, and of course, Nawaz, who is here. I would like also to mention that the film that we saw is a great effort. We need to compliment Baazir, though he is not here physically, for having taken the trouble to produce this excellent production, which I'm sure would have provoked tremendous emotion in the hearts and minds of all of us here. But I must also point out that the film has something fundamentally missing, and I would like to raise that. Why did the LTT massacre, in short, the massacre that happened at Kurukkalmadam? That is not being answered. I would like to mention, before making some observation only on that point, that Ruki mentioned the fact, and very distressingly, if I might say so, that we are all divided into ethnic groups. But if you take the massacres in Kathankudi, not only in Kurukkalmadam, but also in Kathankudi Mosque and in the villages, in the paddy fields, large number of people who were killed, you will have to accept one fact, that it is not because those people were Muslims that they were massacred. Though they were Muslims, if I might repeat, though the people who were massacred in Kurukkalmadam and also in Kathankudi and in other places were Muslims, but they were not massacred because, in my view, because they were Muslims. They were massacred because this community did not support the division of this country. The LTT was targeting that. This community did not support the division of Sri Lanka into another second Israeli state here in this country on the basis of Tamil racism. With all respect to the Tamil people, we know the Tamil people did not support by and large, but then that was a motive backed by foreign interest. We know what happened. So the event that, the comment that I wish to make is that these were attacks not based because of religious divisions, but as early as 1989 and 90, the Muslims, as was pointed out, were sent off, kicked out of the north because they did not support. These are matters on which the Sri Lankan government, of all the government that have come from from earliest times, must remember. We cannot forget that we have been one of the most patriotic community in this country. If you were mentioning about the legal aspects, the International Commission of Jurists has put out a report just, I believe, last week. I'm sure you would have read that. They highlight two factors. One is the allegation that government forces violated humanitarian law, international human rights law, and massacred Tamils, civilians. I think that is a very important allegation. That's one. The second allegation is with regard to the massacre that took place. This is from the ICJ report, International Commission of Jurists report that was released last week, where they talk of the incidents where that took place with regard to the JVP insurrection of 1989. Not one word about the massacre of the Muslims. Now, having said that, I don't want to take much of your time. There are many others here who may wish to raise. I wish to compliment once more for your valuable time in sharing with us your experience. Kathankudi has been the center of many accusations. And I'm sure people like Nawaz should come forward more effectively to tell the world that even sometimes the Easter attack could have had some inspiration that would have happened. What happened in the mosque? 113 people killed while they were prayers. Killed again, not because they were Muslims, but because they did not support the LTT's program of dividing Sri Lanka into two. Again, I wish to conclude by saying you have a duty, right? And we will support, right, in whatever way possible to speak for the people. Did by any chance those Zahran Hashim and people who were in from Kathankudi, did they, probably they were just very young, and they must have heard how these 113, I believe, the mosque label says 103, but I think it's 113, how they were killed and how they were buried. I'm sure the families would have told. Did that have an impact of radicalization? This is the question. I leave it at that. Thank you.
Just a quick response to the last point. There's actually, I don't know, and I don't believe there's a direct correlation or connection. However, there is my background is peace building. So in the peace building studies, there's, there's a lot of these correlations in terms of research showing that, these kinds of impacts carrying forward and all that. But I'd like to share another example in terms of how, if we don't, as a country, if we don't act on non-recurrence of violence, if we don't act on, addressing these things, and if we don't deliver justice, and, if we don't show people that, you are being heard and your victimhood, your discrimination is being addressed, things could actually get back to where it was, or even can get worse, right? So for example, there was a boy who was arrested under PTA post Easter Sunday attack. And I know the family, right? And this boy was in detention for 2 years and then was released saying no issues, right? The boy was a 2-month-old child when his father was abducted in this Kurukkalmadam, right? So Kurukkalmadam and his arrest for me are not very different in terms of, the context and what kind of a context these things are happening, right? So as a country, as a nation, as a community, how are we, creating much more enabling, peaceful reconciliation pathways, or are we really repeating cycles that can have negative impacts consequently, right? So I just wanted to point that, and also I would like to add two more points in terms of the Muslim communities, either challenges or weakness, whatever it is, we can consider whatever we think it is. One, the Muslim community is still struggling, and it's not just on the part of the Muslim community, it's also on the part of the Tamil community, in terms of building relationship between Muslim and Tamil communities, which is important in terms of, as the neighboring communities, especially in the north and east, to get in terms with addressing common challenges like justice. Even about justice, we are still seeing it with like ethnic lens, and we are still fighting for justice beyond these ethnic lines, the divisions, right? Which is not a healthier situation. So both these communities have responsibility to really push the boundary and to get closer to each other and to kind of collectively work towards this. The second point is, it's especially about the Muslim community. One of the reasons you mentioned in terms of patriotism, or the Muslim community was against the LTT course and all that. So there are different narratives and different beliefs about it. However, the point is that Muslim community should not get into the trap of what happened in 90s, where the Tamil community and LTT, whether it was true or not, believed that the Muslim community was working with the state or the state security forces and so on, right? It was not true. The Muslim community would say that was not true. We were under security threat, we need protection, so we had to depend on, and we had to work with security forces, is what the Muslim community's narrative would be. However, there was a strong belief, because I work across all three communities, I'm a peace builder, that's my role, right? The Tamil community and LTT strongly believed that the Muslim community was worked with or stood with the state. Stood with the state, right? So my point is this: whether it's like even in terms of a perception, that would not be a healthier one for the Muslim community in the current situation and in the future. Like for example, right? The Tamil community should not be seeing Muslim community bringing in Kurukkalmadam into the discussion now is to dilute the Chemmani or dilute the Tamil ask for justice and accountability, right? I know Muslim community is not doing it for that. I know for sure. I know Baazir, Baazir works with hundreds of Tamil human rights activists in UK, I know, right? So Baazir is not doing this for that. But what I'm saying is we need to work hard to make sure that the Tamil community doesn't perceive it that way. So these are important actions. That's what I meant earlier. As a community, Muslim community have a huge role to play now in terms of, really getting ourselves a bit up the bar in terms of, working across the communities, organizing ourselves, getting our professional work in terms of research and documentations, up the bar and so on. So would like to, point out those points. I just want to be clear. I didn't mean to say. I didn't mean to say the Muslims were supporting. I was saying that was the perception or the narrative that LTT had, is what I said, right? My point is not about the past. My point is about present and future, and it is a request and a message to the Muslim community. We should ensure that we should not be leaving that kind of, because it's about the communication gap. It's about how we reach out and we make sure that like how it was expressed very clearly at the beginning of this event, and how Chenmani was acknowledged. But this has to go much beyond and much larger to ensure that this is not an effort of Muslim community is not under anyone's influence to undermine any of the Tamil causes. Was my point, and it's not about absolutely like my sister was not in any way was supporting the government, or she didn't care a bit about politics or the government or even the LTT, right? So that's not the point. That was absolutely, straightforward. All of them were like, ordinary victims, whether it was Chemmani or, whether it's Kurukkalmadam. Those were not combatants.
Yes. Please introduce yourself and ask a question.
Okay, I'm Shabir from Sunday Observer. So, with my experience, I want to add something, and I have a question from the Ruki. So, this is like a cycle. Now, we are telling this Kurukkalmadam incident. On the other hand, in social media, I remember when the Kurukkalmadam discussion started, the Tamil people are asking, okay, so we need another justice for the Urkavatpade, those who killed the Tamil people. The discussions are like in the clubhouse, every day, the Tamil people, those who are living in abroad, the diaspora, they are sharing their own experience. This is how the Muslim Urkavatpade killed my brother, my sister. This is like a cycle, as I said. So in Chemmani, if the Tamil victims are asking the justice for Chemmani, so this Kurukkalmadam incident came up. Then those who won't do politics in both incident, they are trying to manipulate that Chemmani, and they talking about the Kurukkalmadam and also Tunuka in other torture camp. So, but my question is, so this all addressed in our in a transitional justice. So there is a term called the reparative justice or the alternative justice. We are talking about the South African method, and even politicians are saying South Africa, but what actually happened in South Africa, the same situation there. And even when we are talking about the border villages, the same happened to the Arantalava. Because 2 days before I was in Arantalava and I visited there, I stayed 2 days with those people. So their experience in the war also similar to the Katangudi or the other areas. So we have to we can't take it from the border villager. It's politically those villages are created in 80s. How the Premadasa give lands and how the forests are destroyed and roads were developed. So without proper any infrastructure facilities, there are villages in Arantalava, in that border area. So we can't, when they are asking justice from it can be a Chemmani or the Kurukkalmadam or Katangudi anywhere, we know those people are not anymore there. So, but we can give through in the transitional justice, it mentioned the reformative justice. So we can develop their infrastructure, we can develop their facilities, we can develop their livelihood. We can do that. So my question is, since after the conflict end, the war is there. I believe is the war is not ended, but the conflict is ended in 2009. So after that, why this government have failed to provide those infrastructure facilities even the Arantala also same. The villagers, their livelihood is zero. They don't have any proper schools or any community centers or libraries or nothing. It's just a village in middle of the forest. So I'm asking why we are not asked this from the government or any authorities. Now more than 4 or 5 governments were changed after 2009. So it's our responsibility to ask them, okay, we need a justice, not in a criminal angle, or we can't kill each other. We can't, there's no more LTT with the arm. There's no more armed conflict. So we need to find alternative options like this reformative justice or anything. And the asking a justice is not, it's our right. Those people's right. We should understand. It can be anything. Kurukkalmadam, Mailathamadu, anything. It's their right to ask the justice. So from that angle only, we need to approach this. So I'm asking Ruki, why, in which point we lose that? Why still we are arguing, still we are seeking justice, transitional justice and truth and reconciliation committees we are talking. So what happened to that mechanism? Why still we are asking it?
Right. I think the word that you are maybe referring to is this retributive justice and restorative justice. Retribution means more like revenge, kind of, no? For something bad happened, and then we want to take revenge for that. The idea of restorative justice, I think, has 2 dimensions. as I understand. One is this wrong notion that restorative justice means forgetting about what happened and moving on, ignoring what happened. But I think what restorative justice really means is restoring just, equal power relations, dignity and rights. Restoring what it was. From, if you want to be religious, spiritual dimension, restoring what God or some divine power intended things to be like, an ideal utopian situation. Right? So restorative justice in practical terms means if land is taken away illegally, unjustly, restore it back to the rightful owners. Restorative justice means if people were detained unjustly under the PTA or any other act, release them. Restorative justice means that if people were abducted and their fate and whereabouts are not disclosed, like in Kurukkalmadam, disclose what happened to them. So that's my understanding of restorative justice, and I think it's a very meaningful idea as a suggestion, but we haven't come to that. But I also think that I was also in Arantalava about 2 weeks ago, and I have been there before several times. Arantalava, for those who, if a few people haven't heard, is a place in the Ampara district, very remote, improvised area, where the LTT abducted a group of Buddhist monks and about 3 lay people in a bus, including the bus driver and the conductor, and killed them all. And there is a big monument. And interestingly, that monument has state patronage. At least Mahinda Rajapaksa, Maitripala Wickramasinghe has visited and supported. I think Ranil Wickramasinghe has also supported to give electricity and all of that. You wouldn't find that in the Kathankodi Mosque or in Satrakondan or in Nawali where Tamils were killed or disappeared. So, right? But nearby there, Arantalava, there are several other Sinhalese villages which I referred to as threatened or border villages, like Mangalagama, Gonagala, where Sinhalese people were killed by the LTT in massacres in the 80s, 90s. But we can take individual incidents. It will be a long list which will always be incomplete. Some will be, majority probably be Tamils who were massacred. There might be some Muslims, Sinhalese, who were also massacred or disappeared. But I think we also need to address the root causes or historical or deep down grievances. And this is very political. That's what I mentioned by a political dimension. And I think some will disagree with me and is open for debate. I think we have a deeply entrenched Sinhalese Buddhist state in Sri Lanka, in this island, which has always been very hostile and had a sense of superiority over others. And when others who were marginalized, oppressed, tried to rise up, they were always suppressed. And that's how I understand the phenomenon of LTT, as a political movement, which turned into an armed movement and which later engaged in terrorist activities like the massacres in Kathankodi Mosque, but essentially a political movement at the beginning, which tried to challenge the oppressive Sinhalese Buddhist state. Initially, the challenge was in the Gaul phase, not in 2022, but in the 1950s and like that. In old men wearing white, doing satyagraha, who were beaten up. Old Tamil men wearing white who were beaten up. So they tried these peaceful, democratic kind of struggles, which failed. And then at certain point, young Tamil youth, they took up arms because they felt that this is not working. Right. So I think we need to understand that political dimension. That's what I feel. Otherwise, we'll come up with a long list of incidents where Sinhalese victims, Tamil victims, Muslim victims, and so forth. Army perpetrator, JVP perpetrator, LTT perpetrator. But I think the essence, the root of a very oppressive Sinhalese Buddhist state is, I think, important to acknowledge. And that's a very political statement, and I am willing to engage with that. But to add a few other things, I think I think there are a lot of references to Chemmani, which is good. But I think we also need to refer to Matale or Suryakanda or Hokandar or places like that. Because port city, or because these are also mass graves. If you are going to talk about individual incidences, individual cities or villages where human remains, unidentified human remains were found, like in Chemmani, we need to refer to those as well. In fact, in 2012, 13, 14, there was a lot of Matale was in the news, because remains were found. But I also want to come back to the technical dimension that I mentioned. I think we need to engage a bit technically as well. Now, the words Kurukkalmadam and Kalavanchikudi is used interchangeably. I think we need to sort it out. We cannot leave it in confusion. What is Kalavanchikudi and what is Kurukkalmadam? They are two close by places. I think very close proximity. So Kalavanchikudi is about 10 kilometers approximately, maybe south of Kurukkalmadam. So we need to sort out these technical things as well if we are going to move forward, because we need to try and be a bit factual and objective as well. And also I think we need to consider the 1990s context in Batiklo, Kattankudi kind of environment. It was a 1990s, June, July, August, September was where massacres was almost the norm. There was this Vandaramule, Eastern University, where about 150 Tamils were taken away. Never heard of again. Then similarly in Satrakundan. And then in Eravur, mosque. There's a monument in the Eravur mosque where several people were killed, Muslims. And then Saukadi, another very tiny Tamil village, interior from Eravur, where some Tamils were killed, and the Tamils say that very clearly that Muslims and Sinhalese were responsible for that massacre. And then of course the Kattankudi mosque, which we talked about, and then Sinhalese policemen who were killed. So 1990s, particularly June to September, was a terrible time. It was also a time where 1990 in Batiklo, a Catholic priest disappeared in the middle of these Muslim-Tamil tensions and violence. He was an American Catholic priest in Batiklo, I think in August 15th. So I think we need to also take into context these 1990s, what was happening in 1990s, and not take either Satrakundan or in Eravur or Kattankudi or Kurukkalmadam in isolation. So we need to be able to address to some extent in a broader as a pattern, while acknowledging the deeply personal pain, hurt of people in Kurukkalmadam or in Satrakundan or wherever they are. Because people in Kurukkalmadam, I think the mother and the sister we saw may not be pacified if we talk about what happened to Tamils or Sinhalese. Likewise, the other way around. So that's why I think the personal dimension needs to be acknowledged and dealt with, while acknowledging also the political dimension. And the political means the history as well as the present and the future.
Very quickly, while I agree with Ruki that we need to be looking at the overall kind of context and everything that happened around that period, I had kind of I had this chat, a long chat with Baazir, when I was in UK recently about this. So what he said was very interesting, and I think it's important. He said why this is important and why this is important to highlight this separately and identically as Kurukkalmadam and as an incident targeting the Muslims and the victims being Muslims is because it's not in the light. It's not being spoken of. Even among the Muslims, the moment you said Kurukkalmadam, and they were like, what? Where it was like how the Muslims in the south asked when the Muslims from north were evacuated and came, they were like, oh, is that really, are they here? So it's because of that I think it's important that this need to be highlighted and this need to be spoken separately. And very quickly responding to the question that came from there, regardless of the terms and what reconciliation, what's important is that you need to address all aspects that involved in affected by the war and the conflict, whether it's reparation, whether it's justice, whether it's truth, all of that. And in that context, what's important is we should not be worried about why different people are talking about different things, why repeatedly a lot of different things are coming. Those are all needed and good, it's healthy. You need to be talking, you need to bring it out, right? The more you hide, the more you put under the carpet is the risk. That's dangerous. So we should not be worried that why it's coming repeatedly and why we are talking about it again and again, which is not a bad thing or not a dangerous thing, right? Why we are talking about it so late is because we as a nation has not addressed it timely. It's about 15 years after the war. Had we, been proactive and started early and done things, we wouldn't be talking about this now, right? That is true, but we don't need to worry that we are talking about this as a negative thing, or why are we worried, why are we talking about it. Is not at all a negative thing. It's a healthy thing. We need to be talking about all of these things.
Thank you very much for the kind invitation to attend this film, Killing the Travelers screening and the discussion. And I agree and disagree the points that has been put forward to us. And and also the points that I have to say, and then what I am going to say, sometimes we agree and disagree also. And there are many narratives. There are many narratives and in a conflict. So matter of fact, we understand that one. This is one of the narratives that's film, trying to say something to us. This narrative is a Muslim perspective per se. So by and large, the entire community of this nation have their own narratives and stories and sufferings and scars and everything. We would accept the fact first. Then, in what perspective we are looking at this one? That also matters for us. As Ruki rightly said, the political dimension always driven us. Even this discussion of Kurukkalmadam came up when the ceremony is light. The entire focus to the ceremony, and then it has been erased. I'm not saying it is wrong, it is right. But this is the right time to raise. That's a major focal point. It's the right time to raise in the context of governance. That's very important. So we don't have the time previously. We never experienced that one. That's what we are saying now, everything put under carpet. No more under carpet time to come. That's assured and guaranteed. Whoever comes to power, that culture would be shifted. Definitely it will be shifted for that point. And then having said those things, now Kepithikollava matters, Maligawa matters, Arantalawa matters, Anuradhapura sacred city matters. Everywhere it matters. When you talk about accountability, criminality of the things that has been taken place, all communities are on the dock. Can't help. Right? Muslims are, Urkavat Padai, and Tamils, again, LTT and blah, blah, armed groups, Sinhalese again, and different, conflicts we got into throughout the history. So now the time is transitional justice. Transitional justice. So we have to carefully understood the term and how it could be handled, it matters. First, the truth finding, victims has to be found out, and then perpetrators to be found out, and accountability comes from there. And what should be the mechanism that we are going to adopt? Local mechanism and international mechanism. The moment that has been discussed in the parliament or raised up there, immediately all of us wanted international mechanism to look into the matter, to provide the justice. I wonder why. Because there is a process to go to. International mechanism, there is a process to go to. So you have to be very careful on that issue. And then, as Ruki said, and I fully agree with you what you said, documentation. And what we have to do it, our aspirations, it matters. So that I say, I just point out, thanking the uh, uh, Kaleelur Rahman, right? Giving up this at least a point to start up with as a civil society organization. Maybe you're a political background, you may have this academy, but still it's we represent civil society organizations, right? Or maybe individual capacity. And then documentation, forgotten atrocities, we have to do that. And silence victims, shielded perpetrators. Some of the perpetrators were the saviors of governments. That also they are why it has been not done so far. And then demanding justice, now or never. I would say now onwards. Past is past. And then again, equal accountability beyond ethnic lines. And pursuing transitional justice, as I said earlier, that is truth-telling, reparations, institutional reforms, and accountability, local, regional, and international platforms. I don't want to name it, everything. Those are the things I think to take it up as way forward. Thank you.
Anything to say or okay? Final words? So I think each story is important and each story has to be told. So I think that's why this story is very important, particularly stories that are not so much in the limelight, from very far remote areas need to be told. And at some point they will hopefully become more discourse at the national or even international level. So in that sense, I think this film is very good, but there's also some articles and reports about this in the past, and I think all those are also very important, and I hope we can take that forward. And I think the symbolism is also connected to the political dimension. I think for Muslims who have faced a lot of abuses, violations in the context of the war, 3 decades of war in the north and east, places like Kurukkalmadam, Kathankudi or Akkarepattu or the northern province where everyone was evicted are very significant. And I think those dates, particular dates, whether it's October 30th or August 3rd are very important. So I think we need to respect that. And it will be significant, I think, to have more Tamils participate in those memorials and solidarity events. The same way it will be significant to have more Muslims participate in places and dates which are very significant to Tamils, like Mullivaikal on 18th of May, and various other places, in around Batiklo and Ampara as well. So I think this kind of a solidarity is very important, and I think the film showed us glimpses of that solidarity in very, very dangerous and difficult circumstances. The driver of the bus, resisted the armed men. The unarmed driver resisted the armed men. Of course, he had to eventually comply, in terms of the power, but he resisted. The passengers, the Tamil passengers in the bus, wanted to protect the Muslims in the bus. There was a reference in the film to a Tamil woman who gave a warning that the mosque might be attacked in Kathankudi, which was sadly, I think, not according to the film, not given much attention. So the film, this very short film of 25 minutes, gives us I think, glimpses of this idea of solidarity, which is probably much easier now. I think what we can do is not as difficult as what the driver and the passengers in the bus tried to do at that time. So I think we have that possibility across ethnic divide. So although I said that that we are very divided, and I think that's a reality, but also there are glimpses of hope and that of solidarity and mutual support that we can kind of build on. Lastly, I think connected to this idea of justice, as much as we talk of cross ethnic justice, justice is also not, I think, limited by national modern day nation state boundaries. The concept of universal jurisdiction is a very well accepted international process by now. If someone commits a crime in another country and that person comes to Sri Lanka, we should be able to hold that person criminally accountable or also socially, politically accountable. That's why some of us are campaigning and saying that Israeli soldiers who are complicit in genocide in Gaza should not be welcomed in Sri Lanka, should not be given not just free visas, should not be given any visas. Right. And the same way, we want people who are responsible for crimes in Sri Lanka, whether it's in Mullivaikal or in Jaffna or in Batticaloa or in Kurukkalmadam, held accountable whether they are in Germany or the US or India or anywhere else. So the idea of this justice should be able to cross boundaries, and that is already accepted in the concept of universal jurisdiction. So I think we should be not try to demarcate justice as a provincial, national, international. Justice is justice. And if we cannot find justice provincially or nationally, then we need to seek it internationally. And that's why I think many Tamils are trying to do, because they waited for a very long time for justice in this island called Sri Lanka. It's not coming, so of course they need to seek justice elsewhere. It's very natural. And I think it's the same for everyone. So I think we should try to be careful of these kind of geographical boundaries as much as ethnic boundaries when we think of justice. So thank you again for I think particularly to the filmmaker and for organizers of this event and for everyone who participated.
Yeah. so those who love reading books, please read that book, right? I just wanted to say that's the point I wanted to say very quickly, just to be fair to Baazir, the point that was mentioned that this is coming in the context of Chemmani. Actually, he was working on this for about 1.5 years now. Right? As he mentioned, he didn't have many other support. He was doing on his own while he was, doing his studies, his job, all of that. So it took a long time for him to complete the project. But contextually, time-wise, it worked out perfectly when he was ready with his film. There's a much more openness with Chemmani. So I just wanted to say that. And secondly, very quickly, I wanted to say, in terms of expectation from people and communities, it's not that everybody expect the same in terms of what they expect for what happened to them, right? So some people would like just acknowledgement, some people would like some memory, some remembrance, some people just want to do rituals, some people really want justice, perpetrators to be punished, right? So sometimes people try to generalize and they put justice in just one category. It's more like punishing kind of category, right? It's very different. It's not just within across different communities. It's also within same community. There are different perspectives about what do they really looking for. So I think we need to be mindful of that. And whenever we are talking about justice, we need to be really representing all that and not just what we think justice is about.
Okay, thank you very much for the panelists and the audience, those who contributed for the healthy discussion. All points are noted down and we have taken into consideration for way forward. As a concluding remarks, Academy for Social Justice take this opportunity to thank everyone. And when you say establishing justice beyond ethnic boundaries, it is simply we can say, but in practical, as Ruki pointed out, it is very ethnicized, regionalized, so many barriers are there. When come to the Muslim community, these kind of exercises are very rare, and it need to be more focused on that. And also we have more challenge because we had to engage with the Tamil community, international community, as well as the state to balance, to get justice for us and for others. So we need to have a very committed engagement, and also it should be very strategic and meaningful. We should not seek justice only for the Muslims. We should seek justice for everyone in this country. If we can think in that way, we can make a road very clear. We are talking about always South African model. When you come to the truth and reconciliation, that is the only model we have, unfortunately. Why can't think of creating a Sri Lankan model? Because we had a conflict. We had the 4 religions are practiced here. 1,000 years of coexistence we have been between Tamils and Muslims. Despite of all this conflict and war, still there are positiveness. Very ordinary people who contributed to the document today, they were nothing about the outside the world. But they are talking about the real reconciliation. Right? They acknowledge the peaceful coexistence with the Tamil community, and they want to continue the same. So that is the ordinary people in this country, they live together. So the legal or the political differences or differentiation or political divide make us keep divided. That is the reality. So move beyond that from every part, from Tamil leadership, Muslim leadership, Sinhalese leadership, Catholic leadership, we have to come to a common ground. He is working on that. That is the common ground we have to find, where we can make sustainable justice in Sri Lanka. As we make a global case study in Sri Lanka, if we can make a Sri Lankan model for the reconciliation and truth, that will be the real example we are showing to the world. We thought the NPP government will do that, but still they are very young. Only few months they have come. They have to give more focus on that. We have to give, this is the time, as Lawyer Faris said, successive government, they failed. It is not the reason NPP government should also fail. They have got a very good opportunity. They have got the mandate. Muslims, Sinhalese, Tamils, Appanti Tamils, Northeast, everyone supported. They believe in their mandate. So reconciliation is the one of the fundamental thing. AKD campaign, 2019 election campaign, each and every stage we were there. We were campaigning for the reconciliation and the economic development and the things. So they have to give a more focus on this. We have to convey this message to the government anyway. And we also try to work with them to bring this reconciliation matter very sustainable and meaningful. We need a meaningful engagement. For the Muslim community, we talk about the challenges. We are very happy because such an audience has been here. Most important organizations are representing. So Academy for Social Justice, not only the institution, there are so many institutions working on this. We have to support them, strengthen them. So that is only the way forward, I think. As a priority, this is the high time. We got an opportunity to further engagement, these kind of missions. So we take this opportunity while this government is in power. We have to work, we have to lobby with them. I think we should have a strategic plan for that. We all can discuss separately how we can work together. There are so many organizations working, Tamils, Muslims, Catholics, Sinhalese. So we can make everyone as a stakeholders of this seeking justice for everyone. I think this is the message we have to take from here. We lost the past. We are talking about the lost opportunities, but we have to create the opportunity and make use of it. I think there is the conducive political environment is there despite of all the shortcomings. So this government have to do, they can do, but we have to work with them. I think that is the message we can carry. Thank you very much. After the vote of thanks, we'll have a small refreshment. We can have it and we can disperse. Thank you.
I take my time to thank each panelist. Mr. Nawaz Mohammed, your words came from your heart and it didn't fail to touch us. Even though Katangudi is a city we pass on a journey or often hear in conversations, you gave us a brilliant visualization and context. And we are grateful for making us realize that human rights violations are heavily visualized through ethnic lens. And also, I would like to thank Mr. Ruki Fernando for touching the practical aspect in matters such as theories related to dimensions and expectations. Your words were very eye-opening. And also, finally, moderator Mr. Najah Mohamed for facilitating this thought-provoking conversation. And finally, we come to the end of this evening. I now invite Attorney at Law, Mr. Rashad Mohammed, to deliver the vote of thanks.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. As we draw this significant and deeply moving event to a close, it's my honor and duty to deliver the vote of thanks. First and foremost, we extend our heartfelt gratitude to Mr. Baazir Kaleelur Rahman, the gorgeous filmmaker behind the Killing the Travelers. Your tireless work in documenting the untold truth of the Kurukkalmadam massacre has brought voice to the voiceless and memory to those forgotten. Thank you for your vision, bravery, and unwavering commitment to justice. Our sincere thanks to go to the distinguished panelists, Mr. Ruki Fernando and Mr. Nawaz Mohammed, for your insightful reflections, critical analysis, and your continued advocacy for human rights and reconciliation in Sri Lanka. To our moderator, Mr. Najah Mohamed, thank you for steering the discussion with clarity, sensitivity, and purpose, and for your role in ensuring this platform exists through the work of the Academy for Social Justice. We also wish to appreciate Ms. Aisha Ajlan, our Masters of Ceremonies, for her poised and professional introductions. A special word of remembrance goes out to the victims of both Chemmani and Kurukkalmadam massacres. May their memories continue to guide our collective pursuit of truth and accountability. We are grateful to the Lakshman Kadirgamar Institute for graciously hosting us, and to our co-organizers, Activists Without Borders and Academy for Social Justice, for further tireless efforts in making this event possible. And importantly, I would like to sincerely acknowledge the volunteers of the Academy for Social Justice, whose commitment, energy, and behind-the-scenes efforts made today's event run smoothly. From logistics to outreach to hospitality, your dedication reflects the very spirit of solidarity that this event stands for. Last but not least, to all of you who attended, activists, students, journalists, lawyers, and concerned citizens, thank you for your presence, your questions, and your willingness to confront uncomfortable truths. This conversation does not end here. Let this be a spark that drives continued dialogue, awareness, and advocacy. Let us leave this room not just informed, but inspired to act. Thank you and good evening.